I want to teach you how to make a tessellation. Tessellations are a really cool repeating pattern, and there's many ways to do it. And if you want to see an artist who does fantastic tessellations, you want to look up MC Escher, and I will have step-by-step instructions on how to do this in your sketchbook. The first thing you're going to do is get a piece of paper and you're going to make it a square. You want it to be as close to a perfect square as possible. So one trick to do it is if you fold it on the diagonal lines, that'll help make sure that all your edges are as similar as possible. We can also use a paper cutter to make it perfect. Then what you're going to do in capital letters, and it's really important to do capital, you're going to write P-A-R-T. And like I said, I will have a handout with the steps in it just in case you need to follow it written. So P-A-R-T. Then what you're going to do is you're going to draw a really fun line going from the top to the bottom. You do not want this line to be itty-bitty little zigzags like this, because you're going to have to cut this out. And you don't want your lines to overlap like this, because again, you have to cut this out. And then you're going to make a line go across the middle. So you can make it however you want, like that. Before you cut, I would ask the teacher to check it, just to make sure your lines will be successful. Once you're done drawing your two lines, one going vertical, one going horizontal, you're going to cut it apart. Now the trick with this is you need to make sure you cut it apart as close to your line as possible. If you make a mistake, that is okay, just keep going. You only want to end up with 4 pieces. If you end up with a little slither afterwards, it's going to make it not work out in the end. So you want to make sure that you cut it so it's as close to your line as possible. And even if you go off the line, that is okay. Just keep going. So I'm going to cut on all of my lines so I end up with 4 pieces. Now again, this is one type of tessellation. There are other ways to do it, and there's some really cool techniques, but this is a nice simple way to make your own tessellation. All right, now that I have all 4 pieces, I don't have any little loose scraps, I need to rearrange my letters. And this is why it was important to write in capital letters. So real fast, why don't maybe not. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rearrange it so it said part in the corners, and I'm gonna rearrange it so it says trap in the middle. So T and R, A and P. Do you see how it spells trap? If I zoom in a little bit, I hope you can see that. Okay. Now it's really crucial, this next step, to tape it correctly. So you're going to take tape, and you need to tape it so that the 2 edges touch perfectly together, but also make a straight line at the bottom. This is going to be a bad tape job. Do you see how it's not straight at the very bottom? You need them to be perfectly touching. So I recommend taping the T and the R together first, putting a piece of tape across it. See how it's not see-through at all and it goes straight across? Then I recommend doing the A and the P together. So same thing, you want them touching perfectly, not overlapping, touching, and making a straight line across the top of them. So straight line, and putting a piece of tape. You also don't want your tape to stick up and stick off the paper. Now, you're going to line it up so the lines down the middle of them right here, they line up perfectly. So they have to line up perfectly. You might be tempted to make the shapes line up. That's not going to work. You need to make these shapes line up. And then you just want to tape everything down. But again, you don't want tape sticking out. You just want to make it so that it's not going to fall apart on you and get floppy where the pieces meet. And you can use any kind of tape you want. It does not have to be clear tape. All right, now that you've done this, you have your tessellation. You have to decide, do you like this side better or this side better? It doesn't really make a difference. I like to look at this side, and I like to start thinking about what this could turn into. So start thinking in your head, what does this look like? To me, if I turn it this way, it looks like a crazy fish. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece of paper and I'm going to lay my tessellation on it. I like to start in the middle, but you don't have to. And you can hold your tessellation however you want. And now you're going to start to trace it. So when you trace it, put fingers on it so it doesn't wiggle. If you have to use a piece of blue painter's tape to hold it in place, you certainly can. So you're going to wiggle it and you're going to make your pencil go all the way around it. You want to make sure your pencil tickles the edge of your tracer. That is very important because if it sticks out too far, then it's not going to work out correctly later. I also recommend when you make your tracer, you might want to use a slightly thicker paper. If you use too thin a paper, it could rip and wiggle a little bit more than, say, a cardstock would. So it's up to you, but that's just a pointer from doing it over the years. Okay, so I traced my first one. Now here's the step. Oop, I went over a little bit. That's okay. I'm just going to take my eraser and I'm going to erase that little extra bit so it doesn't confuse me later. Now here's the trick. I am not picking it up. In fact, I might want to say this side up so I don't forget later. I'm going to take it and I'm going to slide it. And it should start, and I have to figure out kind of how I have to slide it too. I might have to wiggle it a little bit. Oh, here we go. I can slide it this way so it fits together like a puzzle. Make sure this side still faces up. And I'm going to line it up perfectly so that the edge lines up perfectly with this side. And then I'm going to trace 3 out of my 4 sides. I do not have to trace the edge that is already there because it's already there. All right. All right, now, same thing, this side's staying up. I'm not picking it up, I'm sliding it, and I'm going to try to figure out where it fits together. Whoop, I found another one. So I'm going to keep doing this, and then I'll come back and show you the next step as I finish my tessellation. Okay, I finished tracing my tessellation, and all I did was I kept sliding it. Make sure that you get around the edges too. You might have a tiny little spot all the way at the bottom here, or maybe a little piece all the way up here to have to fill in with your tracer. But once you have it traced, then you get to turn it into whatever you want. So if you happen to see a squirrel out of this like I do see a squirrel. What you would do is, or maybe a bunny rabbit, put the same thing in each spot on each thing. So if I wanted to draw an eye, I want to make sure I get it into the same spot. Oh, look, I think I forgot to trace something over here. I did. Okay, let's see. And I have one more eye up here. So you're trying to put everything in the exact same spot. And if you want to draw designs on here, you would put it in the same spot. So pay attention to where everything's located. Don't smush it on there just because you might only have like a teeny tiny bit of it showing, like on here. And then your next thing you want to do is color it in. So you want to think about maybe a pattern, because the tessellation kind of is a pattern. So maybe I would color this one in red, and then this one blue, and then red, and then blue. And then the bottom row, maybe I'd do blue, red, blue, red. And then up here, if this one's red and this one's blue, then this one should be red, which makes this one blue, red, blue. And you can have fun making it your own. You don't have to make it a solid color. You can make some really cool designs. And again, in your sketchbook, I will have step-by-step instructions on how to set up the tessellation part itself. Have fun making a tessellation.